Yoweri Kaguta M7 has committed treason. But before we go there, I want to tell you that Yoweri is Joel. Yoweri is Joel. But in Bantu, like in Luhya, we call it Choeri. Choeri. But in Nyankole, they call it Yoweri. So Yoweri Kaguta M7 has committed treason. Treason, the definition of treason today is not the definition of treason that was there a few decades ago. The definition of treason a few decades ago was that if you try by using any process, if you want to replace the president or the head of state through any way apart from the way that is recognized by the constitution of that country, if you attempt, then you'll be charged with treason. I'm saying attempt because what you did not succeed. You did not fulfill. If you fulfill, there is no way you can be charged with treason. You can start your own, they call it liberation movement or something, just like Mvetra. So long as you have not captured the seat of the presidency, you will be called rebels. And when you are caught, you will be charged with treason. But if you succeed, the immediate former government will now be, they'll start being called rebels, guerrillas, and so on. So before you succeed and you are arrested, you'll be charged with treason. But once you succeed, you become the legitimate government of that country. That is the definition of treason a few decades ago. But today, treason is described differently. Today, treason is described differently. There are three arms of the government. There used to be three arms of the government, yes. But those days, the president or the head of state used to be above the law. Moi would wake up one day, appoint anybody to be the chief justice, nothing happens. So it was the legislature and the judiciary were subordinate to the executive. You could, the president himself could replace he could wake up in the morning, like what Moi did in 1983. He decided suddenly to call a sudden general election. He was above the law. Even today, the president is above the law, only that he is above the law in his official capacity. You can sue Ruto, but you cannot take him to court right now. The court will suspend the case until he completes his term in office. But those days, the president was second to God, and all treason used to happen to that way. If we can remember right now that the president of South Korea was removed because he wanted to dictate to the legislature. I think he has a case now. He has a case that is treason. Imagine when I was your age, imagining that the president can be overthrown, can be charged with treason. It only happened once. It only happened once in Ethiopia. When Ethiopia, the Emperor Haile Selassie was overthrown, He was replaced by a military junta. It is spelled as junta, but it is pronounced as junta. The head of the military junta was a brigadier general, and his deputy was a colonel or colonel, Mengistu Haile Mariam. So one day, Mengistu Haile Mariam charged the president, the brigadier general, with the treason and trying to overthrow the government. Well, it only happened once, and it didn't make sense then, and it does not even make sense today. So those days, the president was everything. The head of state was everything. You could not imagine the executive being challenged. And that is why you find that when you are taken to court, you are charged with state versus you. But in Britain, you are charged, okay, we are yet to get used to that. We used to say Queen versus Kwatenge, but nowadays it's King versus Kwatenge. So you can so if Charles is to be taken to court, he cannot be charged with the King versus Charles because he's the king. That is where we borrowed that. So those days, any imagination or anything, we did not even consider the other two arms, the legislature and or the judiciary. It was not that way. But today, worldwide, students of constitution will tell you that trying to undermine one of the three arms of the government is treasonable. If you try to imagine overthrowing the government if you imagine overthrowing the government through the executive, occupying Harambe House, occupying State House, that is treason. It used to be treason and it is still treason. The other treason is breaching the parliament the way Jinsis did in Kenya. That one is called treason, and anybody who would have been arrested there would be charged with treason. The third one is breaching the courts. Breaching the courts. The Jinsi breached the court and they even overran the Supreme Court of Kenya. That is treason. So if you follow the treason as it is today, Jinsi in Kenya committed treason twice. They committed treason by breaching the parliament, the legislature, and they also breached the judiciary when they breached into the Supreme Court. Now, today we are talking about Museveni, M7. When we are talking about M7, it's a long story which I'll not go into it. It's something to do with Colonel Dr. Bisije, Lutala, and others. The case had been taken to a court of the case had been taken to court of appeal, whereby people are questioning why civilians would be taken to. They were questioning why civilians would be taken to a court martial, and the civilians. Actually, Dr. Kisa Bisige's co-accused stated that he was wondering why he was being taken to a military court, yet he has never even been a Boy Scout. Akiwacha tu tucheke kidogo. So it took long for the Supreme Court to sit. People are saying it had taken 2 years. I'm a foreigner, I'm a Kenyan. But the Chief Justice said it is 4 months. So the issue of saying 2 years, that was exaggeration. And he also justified why it took long for them to sit, because there was a changeover in the composition of judges in the Supreme Court. So that is water under the bridge. It's gone, and it's gone forever. And you see, any decision made by a court can only be overturned by a superior court to it. What do I mean by superior court? If you are jailed by a magistrate, a high court or a senior magistrate would review your case. And if it is a chief magistrate or principal magistrate, the case can be reviewed by high court. And if it is high court, it can be reviewed by court of appeal. And court of appeal, it can be reviewed by the Supreme Court. Can a court review a decision by the same court? Yes, it do happen, but in very rare occasions. Suppose you went to court. And was charged, and let's say even the Supreme Court. Let me take the Supreme Court, because other courts you have a higher court too. If the Supreme Court passes a decision like the one which was passed recently by Chief Justice Owiny of Uganda, what happens is that if the court sat, how many judges were there? If the same court can resit with more number of judges, preferably, because I'm using the word preferably, because in Supreme Court, if you remove all the judges who are with the Chief Justice Owiny, you'll find that there'll be no judge, isn't it? So we say that preferably judges who did not sit in the first place, and then they resit. Okay, let's say that Owiny were 5. Usually they like having an odd number, so that in case of a tie, if there are 6, it is quite possible for 3-3, and it will have a problem. So usually they like having an odd number. If there are 3 judges, 2 will decide you are guilty, 2 will decide one way, and 1 will decide the other way. But then, a case like Kenyan, we had a Supreme Court judgment the year 2017, where judge of the Supreme Court, Justice Ibrahim, was sick. So they sat 6 judges. When they sat 6 judges, in a judicial way, it is this way. If the number is even, it could even be odd. You have 7, but one judge excuses himself or herself, or decides not to make a judgment. Then you'll remember that there'll remain an even number. When it remains an even number, and let's say they have 3-3. They have 3-3. It means that the last judgment goes through. For example, the Court of Appeal in Uganda said that it is wrong for the military to try civilians in the court martial. So if they would have tied, then the decision by the Court of Appeal would have stood. Now, here is the story now. The Court of Appeal has made a decision. And if you look at the Ugandan case very, very, na macho ine kama mimi, you'll discover that everybody in Uganda has accepted the judgment except one person, Joel. Joel has rejected it. And these other people, there was an attorney general, I think he was an attorney general, who gave Yoweri Kaguta M7 legal advice, which Yoweri Kaguta, he told Joel, we should not go to court over this. This is a straightforward case, and he was sacked. So the current attorney general is having a problem, because if he goes against Museveni, he'll lose a job. We have some people who would rather the country burn, but they retain their pay slip. I hope this current attorney general is not that type. So they did that. Everybody has agreed that things are not okay, and they want to release all those people who are non-military, because the Supreme Court under Chief Justice Owiny said, they did not say that release those civilians. No, they said that those civilians should be transferred to a civilian court which is of competent jurisdiction, which is of competent jurisdiction. Now, that is a very simple thing, because what the military court, or they call it general court martial, would have done is to have a sitting and then send an order, what do you call, a remand order, to the Commissioner General of Uganda prisons, telling him to continue detaining those people up to the time, I mean, for in the interim, maybe 2 weeks, as we prepare to transfer these civilians, to a court of competent jurisdiction. But here are people, here are the court martial who know what is happening, but they are afraid they cannot tell the king that is naked. That is one. Here is the Commissioner General who cannot tell Museveni anything. And here is the Attorney General who is also having that problem. And in a very unwise way, Kaguta Museveni sent a message to social media, which was very, very much unfortunate, in which he was questioning that. I mean, he has already made a decision. Yes, there's nothing wrong with making a decision, but you don't become public. First of all, you make a decision, keep it to yourself, look for an attorney, but since it is a president, he looks for the Attorney General to seek his advice. Now he goes public and says, okay, this is whatever. Then he goes on to say that I'll seek for the advice of the AG. For those who are in Kenya, some GNCs were saying, not me, but to some extent I tend to. Oh, I'm not supposed to say that, especially being a pro-Ruto. I'm not supposed to criticize Ruto when I'm a pro-Ruto. GNCs are saying, of which I tend to agree with them, that Ruto advises his advisors on what to advise him. That is what GNCs believe. And I think there is some truth, even if it is 1%, but there is some truth. So this is what the GNCs have been saying in Kenya, and it is happening in Uganda. That Museveni, instead of Museveni first of all calling his Attorney General to give him legal advice, then he talks first, and then he says, so he has tied everybody, especially the Attorney General. And that is why it goes back to what I had said, that in today's world, going against any of the three arms, you go against one, you are guilty of treason. You go against two, you are guilty of treason. If you go against three, you are guilty of treason. So by Museveni deciding to go against and failing to recognize and give them the due respect, the Supreme Court, not just the Supreme Court, the Chief Justice, by saying, and I quote, that the judges did not fight for liberation, but the people fought for liberation. Now, what he's trying to say is that he is doubting one of the three arms of the government. He is encouraging mob justice, because today or tomorrow, Ugandans will go and mob justice anybody, and they will say that it is the people who went against that. So Museveni, as he's doing, he has committed treason. Maybe that is why he wants to die in office, because hey, huyu jamaa, a new government has a right and has facts and have points and have everything that can prove him to be guilty of treason. Jeno Mugisha Muntu, asante sana.